Hey everyone, this is Schleicher from Gaming Trend and Tabletop Throwdown, and I'm at Origins with Julie from GreenBrier Games.
Hi guys.
And we have quite a selection of games that GreenBrier is coming out with. And first one we're going to talk to is Zpocalypse 2. Now, this is the second game. Do I need to have any knowledge of the first game to play this?
No. So it's a reboot of our first game. It was our first game, so
it
was
our
baby.
First game.
It was our very first game. It was our baby, and we loved it. And we, when we published it, it was. I still think it's a good game, but it's definitely our first game, and so there were some bits that we thought could be improved on, and we always knew we wanted to go back to it. So we did. So you start off in the city in the first one, and this one, defend the Burbs. So you've escaped the city. The few people who have made it. It's like you are the Rick Grimes of your team, and you've made it to Alexandria, and those people are new, and they didn't know how bad it was, and then you brought the city with you, so now they're figuring it out. So yes, you don't need to know the first game to play this game. In fact, we have a tutorial at the beginning for even the older players because some of the fighting mechanics have changed. And so we do a tutorial at the beginning of just how to do combat and how that's changed up, which I feel like even players who have the first game can benefit from, so they don't automatically go to their go-to mechanics from the original.
Cool. So it looks like you have a map here, and
We do. So it's split up into phases, day and night. During the day, the zombies are pretty quiet, so you get to do a menu of choices, which is here on your point tracker. So you allocate your survivors almost as if they were resources to either go scavenge, to craft, to guard your base, or they might just need to rest. So each one has pros and cons. When you go out and scavenge, you now are not just you, it might be a group. So whoever has placed a survivor can go. So you're going as a party and working together. So it's semi-co-op at least. You benefit from working together. We're not going to make you. You're grown-ups, so you make your own choices, but you're better off if you do. So you go, there's a storybook, and for all the places that you can go to in the world, there is flavor of what happens and then choices. And based on the skills, you will get a choice. So let's say it's somebody who's got a broken down car, and if somebody has mechanic skills, they can get the car running quickly. But if nobody really has mechanic skills, maybe you use firearms and you stand on top of the car and you're using some sort of sniping skills to try to take out as many zombies as you can as you empty out the car to bring the stuff with you. So that you benefit from having survivors who have a variety of skills. So crafting is your basic crafting mechanics. You start small. Everybody can build at least something, a sandbag. As you level up, or if somebody has skill in mechanics, they can build better things. And so you go from your basics to something like a trash can kitchen, which feeds people much more efficiently. So you can level up in crafting. Guard lowers the number of zombies that appear on the board during the nighttime phase. And if you rest, that's because you have a survivor who's hurt, but that adds to the zombies because then now there's somebody who isn't paying attention to that one that's like sneaking up on the back alley. Nighttime is combat. I have our mutates out because
they just look cool.
They look cool. You start off with your vanilla zombies, your basic flavor, and then as they get more powerful, they level up and they have their own stats. However, you can also level up. We have some, as you can see, radioactive spaces on the board, and that's bad, except that you can mutate and then use it to your benefit and gain superpowers. So the zombies mutate, but so can you. As you can see, when you go out, you get parts for crafting, food to keep your people alive. If you get hit by the zombies, we have wound cards. And then, of course, as you get better at things, you level up in the skills that I talked about. So each character starts with their stats, which are at the bottom of their card, but then they can level up and get better.
Very, very cool. And it's more than just like walking around and having a weapon and...
No, we made it almost a mini campaign. So it's the daytime and the nighttime phase, and then there are 4 stories or 4 scenarios, I should say. in the core game, and each one has a different objective. So the win objective is different depending on the scenario you're playing.
And how do you make those scenarios replayable? Do you change the maps a little bit?
Well,
or...
the map can expand differently. Actually, no, that's not true. In the beginning, it's a set map. However, you have different survivors. They have different abilities. As you go out and explore the world, we have 24 near locations, and then once you get the truck up and running, you have far locations. So you're going to different places as you go, which means you might encounter different scenarios within the objective.
Cool. So you have how many survivors to play as? Do you know?
I think 36.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
So there's a lot of different characters, and as you can see, there's a wide variety. So I have me, because why not? Then there's Madison there, who survived from the original game. She went from being a little 3-year-old, a cute little 3-year-old, so now she's 10 and she's seen things. She knows stuff. She's a vicious killer. Don't mess with her. And then, of course, you get Rosie the puppy, because we're in suburbia now, so there's a lot more puppies, and they don't know. They just want to find food and be loved. And hopefully they'll bite things that come near you. So you have a variety of characters you can play. Each one has some special abilities. They also have different objectives. So you have each character makes it a bit unique as well. So they have different objectives. They have their flavor text. So yes, the whole, much like the original, the world has been fully enriched in where you are, and what you're doing. And of course, the board here keeps track of their health and stats. Yes. Defense is collective.
It's nice to have a spinner, because then it makes everything clear as far as, like in this case, hit points and the total defense. Otherwise, you're keeping track of tokens. It can get a little fiddly, and
I will say there's a lot of components to this game, and I only have a smattering, but we found they were still very intuitive, even as much as it is. You understand, like, food is used to feed the people. The parts you get, the components you get, are used to build things. None of it seems like, what am I doing with this? You know what it's for, so that makes it a lot easier. The one other thing that is different than the original, kind of like what I talked about, is that in the original game, you needed to get a 5 or a Z or just a Z to have a success and everything like that. In the game now, it's a pool. So if you roll, if this is my pool, this is what I have to choose from, and depending on my skill level. So if I'm trying to attack a zombie, and the zombie, I can hit it for 10, let's say. If I have only a 1 skill level, I can't do that. If I have a 3 skill level, I can make a pool and create the 10, because I can use 3 dice. So your skill level is how many dice you can add together to make that happen.
So that sounds like it makes it a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but it gives you more choices.
It makes the dice roll less swing. The variety, you could get all Z's and be the master of your own destiny, or you could get all 1s and 2s and hit nothing. This way, it gives you an option. So maybe I attack. So let's see. RIP for this is 5. So I just needed a 5, and then my characters move 4 spaces. And so if I hit it I was here, I attacked, I moved 4 spaces, 1, 2, because that's a yield sign, 3, 4, that's as far as I can get. So that would be the end of my turn, and I can't use all of these. However, if I was near, say, a search location, and I had moved onto a search location, I could then use spend to search. And that would be, depending on my search ability, I could use that many dice to pick up that many cards to choose the best out of those 3. So I only get 1 card, but however many dice I use, I can pick up and then choose.
So it sounds like there's quite a bit of options with the dice that you have depending on your skill level.
Correct. It gives it a lot more flexibility of making choices.
Cool. And this is available now?
This is available now.
And there's going to be an expansion coming out for this?
There is an expansion coming out in July, The Wastelands. So it's more stories. you go from safe little suburbia, you'll find out in the story, it kind of leads to there's others out there, and you're trying to find maybe a safe haven, maybe just other people to help build up your defenses here in suburbia, but instead you find like Mad Max is basically what it comes down to. You find some people who have mutated and gone way off the fringe. So it's a lot. The swings are much higher for benefits and detriments. There's a lot more PvP mechanics. So if you like it to be more of an antagonistic game, I guess, that's the game for you. There's some brawling mechanics, some arena style fighting, and and you get some new characters. You get some new challenges, new stories, new expansions of places to explore, and it's a much more wild place, more wild. Yeah. It's not tame like suburbia.
Right? Yeah, Mad Max. That's not tame at all.
No. I had a lot of fun writing the storyline for it and the flavor for it. Walter had a great time too. He did all of the scenarios. So between the two of us, we had a lot of fun. We played a lot with it.
So how many players does this play?
It's 2 to 5 players.
And how long does it take to play about?
A campaign, I would say, is about 2 hours. A little less if you have fewer players, a little more if you have full 5.
And what does this retail for?
$60.
Cool. And now we have Overseers, which is a card game, but it looks like a little bit more than a card game. How does this play?
So this is, on the other end of the spectrum, a light card game. You're making tricks, but you're doing it with your Overseer. So an Overseer is a very powerful being who has become jaded and weary with the world and has to toy with his fellow Overseers, I think, to amuse themselves. So think of it as you're playing a god of the ancient Greek variety or something to that effect. And you are taking your original, so you get 6 cards. Each character player would get 6 cards. Based on the cards, you're going to do a drafting round. So you take one, pass the rest to make a grouping of 5. So these are the different cards you can get, and they each have different attributes. If you have a handy dandy little chart here that tells you what each of them do, but also depending on the number of players, how many you would make in the deck, so that there's always only a few left over, and the probability, you're kind of expecting to count cards a little bit here. So for anger, it's a straight number of points. Same thing with benevolence and lust. You're just getting straight points depending on how many the card that you have. For courage and hope, you're trying to make a set. 0 only gets you a few or nothing. 2 cards gets you more. 3 cards gets you the most points. Anything beyond 3, you don't get more points, but you might be holding off so that somebody else can't make a trick of that kind. So you might do that. Greed is the only one where you can lose points unless you are the only person with greed, and then you get it's like you're kind of you're doing shooting the moon kind of mechanic.
Yeah, exactly.
So you pass around your cards and you make your set. So let's say I end up with, so that would be just straight, that would be 6 points, and I'm trying to get, let's say I have, the rest is I have 3 hope. So this is a pretty good hand. This would give me a lot of points. But I'm not going to just show everybody my cards at once. So everybody drafts, and then you're going to put 2 cards face up and 3 cards face down. And then based on looking at everybody's cards, you vote who you think has the best hand. Now, you don't know if you have the best hand. You might suspect, and nobody knows if you have the best hand. But you have this bluffing moment where you say, well, I know I passed on X, Y, and Z, and I didn't get them back, so I'm pretty sure you have, and so I think you have the highest hand. And you vote for that Overseer. Now, that Overseer can say, I absolutely do not, and you're making it up because you kept it for yourself, and so you have the best hand, so I'm going to vote for you. In which case, if there was a third player, they would be the swing votes.
Okay.
Let's say they vote for me. Now, I can either accept and say, you know, it's right, it's me, and remove 2 cards from my hand, or I can deny and say, no, I genuinely think it's that person, and wait and see once we turn the cards. If I accept, I can determine which 2 cards I'm going to get rid of. If I deny and I'm wrong and I do have the highest hand, I have to take away the 2 best that will give me the most points. So in this case, if it was me and I said, okay, it isn't, I would take away these 2 because I'm losing 6 points, but I'm keeping my higher of 3 of 21 points. If I had denied it and I was wrong, I would have to take these 2 because that would remove the most amount of points. So, but the thing is, I'm not sure. I'm guessing as well. I might be pretty sure. I might be 95% sure, or I might not. And that's kind of the fun part about it. Then everybody counts up how many points they have. Depending on how many points you have, you take the number. So we have coins, but then you flip them so that you can't keep track of how many points everybody has. And there's 3 rounds. Now, on top of all of this, each of your overseers has a special ability. So there's a certain things you can do. Some of them can peek at other people's cards. Some can force people to trade with them. Some get extra points at the end if they have certain types of cards. So you're mitigating some of the things that you do with the ability of the character that you have, which might also inform how you play. But it's a quick game. You go around 3 times. I think the first time you're just trying to figure out what the sets are, but it's very simple. So really, once you get that, you start to think about the strategy. You start looking at what everybody's passing. You're trying to keep track of what everybody has, and you're trying to figure out how good of a liar your opponents are.
So there's a little bit of bluffing and betting along with the drafting.
Yes, there's absolutely. So I find the most fun I have when I'm demoing is with people who know each other really well. Siblings. Siblings are fun to watch play. Super fun, because there's a lot of accusations, a lot of denials. It's definitely a human interaction kind of what everybody brings to the table brings a lot out of the game.
Cool. And when is this available?
This is available now.
Okay, and how many players does it play?
The players 3 to 6. Let me double check that to make sure. 3 to 6 players.
Okay, and how much does it cost?
It costs $25.
Okay, great. Okay, and finally we have here a game that's coming to Kickstarter from GreenBrier Games.
That's right. This is going to be the newest, latest, greatest.
It's called Champions of Hara, and the board looks awfully big, but it's made up of a lot of hexes. So what's the objective of this game here?
So, Hara is a group of different worlds. So you have 6 worlds, and you have the dojo in the middle, that have been kind of slammed together, different realities. And for each one, you have a champion. So you pick one of the champions to play. Now, in the game, there's a PvP version of the game and a co-op. For the PvP, you're running around the board eliminating each other. When you do that, you are gathering points, and the first person to get to maximum points for all 3 powers and get back to the dojo is the winner. So it is a king of the hill kind of a thing. Here's the fun part. You do this by turning cards and placing them, and there is a mechanic for how to place them, and you're defeating monsters or you're closing rifts, because all of these worlds slam together because these rifts opened and they've been sliding, realities have been sliding through. So you're closing them off to stop that from happening before the end of everything.
Right.
So it's fun and light, except for that part. So every monster that you defeat, every rift that you close, gives you points and helps you level up and gives you powers. In the PvP, you're trying to be the first one to do this. In a co-op game, you have a big boss monster and you're trying to stop these things from filling up. So as they fill up with more and more things, either rifts or monsters, if the whole world fills up, it drops away, and if you lose 2 worlds, you lose the game.
Oh, wow.
So you don't want to lose the world. So in a co-op, you're using your powers to help each other out. In a PvP, of course, you're not. When you use powers, each card has 2 mechanics. So each character has their own abilities. But as you can see, there are 2 different ones. One, you place the card down and you do that ability. So you would place it down next to your tracker, and you would do the top move.
I
and
see.
then on a separate turn, you can't do them both in the same turn. When you pick it up, you can do the bottom activity. So you're planning a little bit ahead with your abilities. As you level up, you get more cards and you can specialize. So each character has their own abilities, their own special powers. And as they go, they can kind of specialize in what those powers are. Now, in addition to that, as you go, some of your monsters will give you different items that will allow you some bonuses and benefits. Some of them are use and lose, and some of them are equipment that you can keep permanently or for longer than just a discard, unless somebody forces you to get rid of the toad here.
Cool.
And all of it being, each of the characters and everything are really founded in each of the 6 different worlds. So the hero is a reflection of that world, but so are the monsters, so are the items.
And you can tell that each of the different worlds has its own theme, but each of the hexes within each world are unique art.
Yeah. And the final really fun thing I'd like to point out is at different points, the worlds can shift.
Oh, how do they shift?
They
You literally...
shift.
You pick them up and switch them.
So if you might be trying to get to a certain location to do something, and then suddenly you're far away from that location when you were just cutting to it.
Cool. It looks like you have some custom dice here too. What's that for?
This is for the placement. So if I were to place a card, so I have the gray number 1. So I would be looking at this right here
I see.
for where to place my tiles.
Cool. So, and this will be for how many players?
It's going to be for 2 to 4 players.
And how long does it estimate to take?
It takes about an hour.
And this will be on Kickstarter in September?
And
Okay.
you should definitely look at it. And if you're going to Gen Con, you should definitely come and play it at our booth. Walter will be demoing it nonstop.
And then you have one other game that's coming out later this year that I've been looking forward to for a long time.
Yes.
It's called Folklore.
The Affliction.
Yep. And that is a miniatures kind of role
It's an
playing.
RPG tabletop.
And it has a consistent campaign where the characters keep their skills. And does it have, how do you keep track of the skills?
So each of those, you have the player mat, which has your character's stats, and you keep track of that on a tracker. But then you can also level up, and when you level up, there's a menu so that you can kind of specialize. So you start with a base character, but you can let them grow, and as they level up, they become more of one track or another in specialties. But there's also a character sheet. So if you're playing an ongoing campaign, if you decide that you're going to play the same ongoing campaign, you can write down all your stats. So you have a character pad, and it's also downloadable on PDF through our website.
Okay.
So just like an RPG, you can keep it that way. You can keep track of a campaign that way. So you can leave everything out, but most people don't want to leave everything out. So we have that ability where you can keep track of the whole campaign.
And the setting for it is very unique too, isn't it?
It's a throwback, but in the best way possible. So it's the old school. You're not crazy overpowered. Magic doesn't come naturally. If you use it, it changes you. So the heroes are trying to eradicate all of the evil in the land, but the evil is the traditional evil. You have vampires, werewolves. It's their powers are more through hard work and thoughtfulness and research, and also a drive for whatever their personal reasons, which you can come up with because they are your character, of eradicating the world of this evil that has plagued the land.
And when is that going to be released finally?
So it's going to be in retail September 20th. It will be to backers before that, and we will have some at Gen Con.
Cool. Yeah, I know I've been looking forward to it for a long time because it just looks very unique compared to some of the other miniatures games that have come out there. And especially the
It's
characters.
I worked and I joke about it. It was a long time working on it, and I didn't always love working on it because there was just a lot, but I do love playing it, so it's totally worth it.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yep.